In 1982, John Milius' Conan the Barbarian fought on the big screen. The US production with an R rating had a budget of $60 million and made it in America more than 2 times back. It was a great success with audiences but went not well with critics and got harsh reviews. Gained a cult following over the years and is widely regarded as the best barbarian movie and also one of the best fantasy movies in general. It is based on the character Conan the Chimera by Robert E. Howard, appearing first time December 1932 in the Weird Tales magazine story The Phoenix on the Sword. Actually called by this ex I Rule and belonged to another series with Kull as hero, who had his first appearance already in August 1929. After it got rejected, it was modified and Kull became Conan. Both have their own stories and since the beginning of the 70s also in comics. Conan first and shortly thereafter also Kull. In February 1973, Red Sonja had her first appearance in Conan. In the following issue also on the cover and since 1975 also in her own one. Conan witnesses as a child how the horde of snake cult leader Tul Sadum destroys his home village and kills his parents. The children are enslaved and taken to the far north. Now he has to go in circles for years by pushing a wheel, which has no recognizable function, except for torturing small children, I guess. After growing up he is sold and his new owner lets him fight in the arena, but he also is taught how to use the sword. When he finally attains his freedom, he goes on a search for the murderers of his parents to make them pay. The awesome soundtrack by Basil Poledouris, which also scored the sequel Conan the Destroyer, is from my point of view one of the best scores ever made. Often copied and quoted, see Total Recall, and has a well-earned cult status. The first time I heard something about Conan was during a TV show, where the scene with the spirits was shown, which did not caught my attention as a child. After I saw years later by chance Conan 2 in the cinema, I remembered that there was still a first part in the adult section of the video store that wanted to be watched. To see it left us really surprised, because in comparison to part 2, part 1 was indeed like a revelation.
Are just men, not gods, not giants, just men. And the secret of steel has always carried with it a mystery. You must learn its riddle, Conan. You must learn its discipline. For no one in this world can you trust. Not men, not women, not beasts. This you can trust.
The first script came from Oliver Stone, who would also have liked to direct. Producer Dino De Laurentiis decided to go with John Milius, which then changed some of the fantasy elements into more action ones. One of Conan's biggest strengths is the very good cast beside Schwarzenegger, who benefits a lot from his rather silent part. James Earl Jones and Max von Sydow are among others fantastic supporting characters, but my personal favorite is Sandal Bergman as Valeria, which represents the part perfectly. In 1984, Richard Fleischer's Conan the Destroyer destroyed mainly the hopes of a third part. With a promise of reunion with his deceased love interest by a sect, Conan is tricked into stealing an artifact in form of a horn. Their priests want to wake up the dreaming god, which of course would have fatal consequences, since he was not sent to sleep without a reason. In 1985, with 13 during the summer holidays, I was in Asira, Palestine, the home village of my family. My 1 year younger brother and I of course took the opportunity to watch an adult movie in the cinema, because why not? So we went to Nablus City, where the desired movie actually ran. Rambo Part 2, of course. Our brilliant thought-out plan didn't work out after we recognized everybody had the same idea and no tickets were available anymore. So we had to watch Conan 2, since this one was from last year and had many empty seats. After 2 hours Indian supporting film came finally the main picture, of course in English, with lots of subtitles in all possible unknown languages. At that time we thought the movie was quite okay, since we didn't know part 1 and neither understood everything nor could recognize most of it. The part that wasn't hidden behind the many subtitles was set so dark that we thought he plays mostly at night. Back from the vacation, a video rental brought a little light into the matter, and so we experienced the full misery of the terrible cheap effects and understood the stupid as fuck story, which got even more silly since we had also seen in the meantime part 1. From the awesome cast of the first, only the wizard Marco reprised his role, but even he can't conjure any tension into the lame staged flick, which comes off with PG-13 quite bloodless. With the exception of Grace Jones, the new cast is altogether less than mediocre. Princess, boring and stupid, at least is nice to look at, with a well-earned Razy performance. But the unfunny sidekick who never stops talking and constantly swallows diamonds is just annoying and makes this thing sober unwatchable, which is probably why you hardly see him in the trailer, as if they knew how badly he sucks. Despite negative reviews, the movie made with $80 million costs $100 million worldwide at the box office. Looking back, I wouldn't want to miss the exciting cinema adventure from my childhood. And also the movie looks better with every sequel that came after him. Soon we found out that the Conan universe runs by the same rules as in the Halloween universe, where each part is worse than the predecessor, but at least not as terrible as the next one. In 1985, Richard Fleischer's Red Sonja appeared, and many fans turned red in anger. Red Sonja resists the approach of Queen Gedrin, confusing cast with the Valeria actress from the first Conan, and scratches her face. Thereupon, the minions of the Queen slay Sonja's family and she got violated. On the following night, Sonja has a vision and swears revenge. Conan also runs somewhere around here, but cannot use his name, since they did not get the naming rights and turned him in the last moment into Kalidor, which sounds quite similar, I guess. This movie is total bullshit, and red is here just the color I see if I have ever to go through this dull brain melter again. The story is puke boring, the casting beyond stupid, the fight scenes crap, and the effects are a joke. Birgit Nilsson is here so bad that even the trailer makes mainly advertising with Arnold's name, and she's only mentioned at the very end. After Conan 2's completely unearned passable success, Richard Fleischer was still allowed to make another of these awful slugs. He used to be a very good Oscar-winning director, who created with 20,000 Miles Under the Sea, The Fantastic Journey and Soylent Green, brilliant classics which even today still are among my all-time favorite movies. But during Conan he was almost 70, and his movies from the 80s are at best moderate, to stay kind. The almost unbearable cheap-looking Snorefest is allegedly with $80 million just as expensive as Conan 1 or 2. Sure, that sounds believable. It did not even make half of its costs in the US back, and was the last final nail in the coffin for Conan the Conqueror, the official third part of the Conan trilogy, for which even a script was already finished. In 2025, after decades of production hell, there's another, this time R-rated, red flop. Here, Hyrcanian Sonja flees after a barbarian raid into the vast mysterious forests. There she grows up alone in search of remnants of her tribe, worshipping the forest goddess Ashira. When soldiers invade, she ends up a prisoner of the Emperor Dragon, who believes in scientific progress instead of the gods. He possesses half of a Hyrcanian book that allows him to supply the capital with arcane energy, and hopes that Sonja's map of the unexplored forest will lead him to the exiled Hyrcanian refugees who possess the missing part, while Sonja has to fight in the arena where she engineers, in the style of Spartacus in Fast Forward, a slave revolt. Red Sonja by MJ Bassett, who directed 2009 Solomon Kane and Silent Hill Revelation from 2012, is once again completely miscast. While the lead of this US production is, unlike her predecessor, actually a real actress this time who gives her best, she simply lacks the physical attributes or charisma or presence to even portray Sonja from the original. Being cute just isn't enough. A similar problem to the last Tomb Raider Cucumber from 2018, but at least that was kind of a real movie. While this almost 2 hours felt for ultra cheap looking talkative sleeping pill which just quickly pulls a new origin story out of its head, comes across more like a streaming movie. There's no information about the budget of this disaster. It received, quite rightly, mostly negative feedback, didn't even come out here in Germany, and got only a limited release in a few countries, like Russia. So no wonder Putin hates us. In 1992, the animated series Conan the Adventurer appeared with 65 episodes at 20 minutes in 2 seasons, well received by viewers and critics, as it was largely based on Howard's source material. It's for a younger audience without the violence, which makes it for me personally irrelevant. In 1994, the animated series Conan and the Young Warriors aired with 13 episodes at 20 minutes. This one is even more for kids, and Conan can be watched while training Little Fighter. This is as terrible as it sounds. After 1 season, Crom had a mercy with the audience and cancelled the punishment. In 1997, John Nicolalla's PG-13 Kull the Conqueror successfully pushed Red Sonja from the last place to conquer the crown for the worst crap in the franchise, at least for now. The barbarian Kull from Atlantis kills a king in his own palace, which conveniently hands him the crown during dying. His relatives, who want also the crown, are understandably not amused and try to get it back by doing the only logical and responsible thing that each of us would also do in such a situation. Of course, bringing a mummified witch queen back to life to control Kull with witchcraft. Then marry him and also poison him during the wedding night. The poisoning, however, was just fake, because in the bedroom he is the best, probably due to regular practice. Because for sure it was not combat training.
On your feet.
As he constantly loses his fights and is beaten up by everybody. The witch wants him by her side, but her falling in love charm apparently only functions before the sex, just like in real life. After he refuses, she wants to kill him. So also no difference as with the usual morning after reactions. The officially dead Kull can escape and makes a journey to get something important for the fight against the witch. I guess the real script pages. Since from my point of view, everything so far was obviously just improvised in some abandoned cheap medieval TV sets. From the $20 million budget, it did not even make a third in the US back, and got crucified by audiences and critics, and was deservedly a box office flop. Actually, it's based on the screenplay for Conan 3, but Arnold was not available and Hercules actor Kevin Sorbo did not want to play Conan, so Conan turned again into Kull. They used a name and 2 events from Robert E. Howard's work and had no shame claiming it was a real Kull adaptation. This would only have worked out if the audience were not only blind but also deaf. As late as the unsuitable rock music would have even made the toughest fan running screaming to the emergency exits. I would never have thought it is possible to get worse than Red Sonja, but it seems at least as if the actors in that movie tried and failed horribly. In this stinker nobody gives a fuck. The dialogue seems just made up as they went along, and most of the time the actors are standing around looking bored, like the audience, probably waiting for their use or the signal for the lunch break or whatever. Also in 1997, the short-lived children's series Conan the Adventurer appeared with 21 one-hour episodes. Conan is here a kind, sympathetic and jovial person. He's a contented member of a merry band of adventurers with a humanitarian quest. The series is not faithful to its source and very forgettable. Ralph Möller shows here his whole range as an actor, which means nothing. He fits perfect in this boring, awful cheap CGI garbage. After 1 season, it was cancelled. In 2011, Markus Nispel's Conan proves it takes at least $90 million in order to somehow still undercut the terrible predecessors, since with the existing 2 dimensions this is physically not possible, while this one here is in 3D. Conan is born during combat on the battlefield. After that he grew up with his father, the armorer and leader of the Cimmerians. During the attack by a hostile army, the father is killed and Conan goes on a search to kill the murderers. But until he gets his final fight, he has to absorb periodically some action bits, so people can confuse this with a real movie. That would have also been achieved with a complete screenplay, but with such a small budget they couldn't afford that, I guess. Also, they probably needed every penny for the CGI monster, which unimaginative boring looks is really scary cheap. Since they got a 3rd dimension with 3D, some may think this balances out the one-dimensional characters. But it doesn't. It made just half of its budget worldwide back and was a gigantic flop. Positive is here only to mention that this Conan is at least R-rated, which is still no indication for good. Reboot expert Nispel was also responsible for the shiny new versions of Chainsaw Massacre, Frankenstein, Pathfinder and Friday the 13th. From my point of view, all as necessary as the plague, and just a shameless rehash for a quick buck. They took some unique classics and gave it to an unimaginative wannabe to smooth them down to mainstream and shit them out just like on an assembly line. The soulless result does not even count as a real movie for me, which is why this uninteresting work can't even keep up with Cull. At least Cull don't dares to call himself Conan and fails only in 2 dimensions, and not thanks to 3D in 3, like this one here.